usually forgetting like more recent events. Like she really doesn't know like much about our lives anymore. Like she'll remember some things like after my mom, just like during when my mom was married. She remembers like everything like after like before that. So she remembers a lot before like when she was like a kid and when she was like growing up. But then once she gets like to when she was like in her 80s and 90s, then it gets like really blurry.
Did you have a good relationship with her before she had Alzheimer's?
Yeah, like we always hung out at like family events. When we were little, we'd always go over to her house and play on her beds because there was this one room that the parents and grandparents would always be talking in one room, so all the kids and us would go run off and play with her like talking fish head. And so yeah, we were pretty close, but by the time we could like from when I'm kind of always remembered her as kind of losing her memory, so it's kind of always been that way. But it's when you see her now, it's really bad.
How has it altered with like your mom and like people who knew her, for so long? How has their relationship been altered?
It's kind of sad. Their relationship is kind of like deteriorating because it's like she barely remembers him. It's hard to have a normal conversation with her because she doesn't know stuff. Like her daughter, my grandma, recently passed away, and sometimes she'll still bring her up in conversations as if she were alive. So it's very hard when you have to go see her because you have to play along with her reality, and sometimes that can be difficult, and it's hard to just communicate with her because she's always bringing up her past. And we had to move her into a nursing home because she began to not be able to take care of herself, and she really misses her home and all her old friends who are basically all gone, but she doesn't realize that. So it's hard to keep a strong relationship with her, and it's hard to visit her now.
As someone who's like knows someone with it, we all know, what the basis of Alzheimer's is, but like what are the undercover things that you don't really know about Alzheimer's until you know someone with it?
It's hard if you don't know someone with Alzheimer's. I feel like you really wouldn't. You feel like it's not that hard to deal with, and you don't really like. It wouldn't be that hard for like someone you know to like not remember you, but to like be called your sister or your cousin and kind of have to play along with it. It's kind of like playing. Like it's kind of like playing in like maybe like a play, and you're like playing a different part. So you're kind of playing along with what their reality is, and it's very. It's yeah, that pretty much describes it. Like, it's playing along with their reality and going along with what they say. And sometimes even because if you mention like her daughter's death, she gets very upset really easily. So you have to go along with her and what she says. Try not to bring up anything bad. So it's definitely more of a struggle than people realize.
I'd get up. Mm-hmm. He'd go outside. I'd go outside. He was at the point where he would just stare at me. He couldn't understand what was wrong with me. And so then, but he was very happy when Mrs. Horn, the other Mrs. Horn, would take him on all her errands because she was a cute blonde. And he sat in that car. So he didn't lose all his faculties. He came here one Sunday because things were kind of tough. I mean, he just knew I needed help. And so he came here and to watch him a little bit. And he decided he wanted to go out for a walk. Well, he walks fast. I don't know if you remember, he could really walk fast. In fact, her other granddaddy would walk with him. And he said, I can't keep up with him half the time. And Gordon was very good. He came quite a bit to walk with him. Well, how we knew that actually my kids made this decision. He was trying to get in somebody else's house because he couldn't remember. But when I think about it, this is more than 7 years ago because that'd be 9 years ago or something. The house was sort of like this one because they're all look alike, Mm-hmm. And so he went and he went into somebody else's place, but he didn't get there very far because Doug was right after him, Mm-hmm. And the next day, the girls took me to the nursing. Took me around. Well, first, Doug took me to all the hospitals. We thought we could detox them. They don't do that. We went to every hospital. What's that mean? Well, take any medication out of them. In other words, clear his body of any. No. Truman Medical Center was the nicest to us because they gave us some pills that may help and stuff like that. The emergency room there. And then we came home, and your mom and the kids, we decided I better go look for a nursing facility. Well, Sarah, I'm gonna started calling around, and she found out that we could visit Seasons Care Center. It was 3 miles from here, and it was Alzheimer, the first one in that I expected a little problem with is that he was in the nursing home for a couple of weeks. I brought him home, and sometimes they don't want to leave. No, he wanted to go back. He didn't fight me on it. So obviously he knew that he was needed the care.
About 3 years ago, we had noticed that, had difficulty remembering dates and got confused of where the things were to go in the kitchen and etc. And also her anger had gotten a lot more escalated, I guess, at times. And so she'd also had seizures, and so the neurologist we went to, Dr. Block, suggested that we get some testing done. At first, we sent her to for therapy with a psychiatrist, thinking that it might have been something more along the lines of depression and that, but. So anyways, Dr. Block suggested we go to KU when we started indicating about the memory loss and forgetfulness. And so we went to KU, and they did the diagnosis through their diagnostic research. So so since that time, while she's been on medication, I have gone to a couple of support groups. One just recently, one was in Blue Springs. They're kind of far and far between to find one, but I did find this one helpful to talk with other people who face the same problem, because it does get kind of confusing for the caregiver. Because it's sometimes kind of a different person, really. It'll never get better. She often asks about that, and I said, no, it won't get better, it'll always get worse, but the medicine will help slow it down. So, but I noticed the progression. It's hard to know what she did yesterday, day before, and then sometimes she can go back 3 or 4 years and remember something. So it's kind of a learning process all the time for a caregiver to kind of get a handle and not let your own anger kind of get up, because sometimes they'll ask you something, if we're going to have a party, when's it going to be, and they might ask you the date and time about 20 times in an hour. Well, after a little bit, it kind of gets to you, and you got to remember we have to join their world, or they're going to join ours, and that's kind of a hard, as far as I'm concerned, been difficult to learn.
When my parents moved back from China, they both went to work, so she would watch me.
What were some of the symptoms you noticed in her?
It was pretty gradual. It went from her not knowing where she was or what day it was to not even remembering who her family was, her daughters and sons, and then her grandchildren.
How was it seeing the symptoms?
I didn't think too much of it because I was 8 when she was diagnosed, so almost as long as I can remember, she's always been asking me the same questions. She'd ask how school was every 20 times, and I'd answer it the same. Sometimes I'd change it up a little for her, but I was always try to be as polite as I can and answer her questions.
What are some of your fondest memories of your grandma?
Even though she didn't remember who we were, she was always so happy to see us, and she loved like baking Christmas cookies, and we would always go over and decorate them. And she made these little like pretzel things with Hershey Kisses and then M&Ms, and would cover the kitchen in them. They'd be like everywhere, and I'd always steal a few. And she was just such a bright and happy person.
Do you have any memorabilia of your grandma?
I have a lot of her jewelry and some of her sweatshirts, and right now I'm wearing her American Red Cross bracelet because she liked to go on walks, but she usually didn't remember where she was, so if she ever got lost, it has her name and then her phone number on the back so people could return her home if she ever got lost.